Okay, what's up, y'all? So now we are rolling with how I got a 4.0 in college, about note taking, about focusing in class, and I want to give you seriously one of the biggest and best tips that I can possibly give, one of the best strategies that I've used in college. I used it from the very first college class I took, the very first day of class, all the way through until the end of my college career. And just a shout out to where I got this source from. There's an amazing book called How to Get Straight A's in College. I read it through completely cover to cover, and this is the one tip that I got from it that I just kept routinely and consistently all throughout college. I think that it made a huge impact on my grades. So, without further ado, the big tip is after you've already gone to class or watched class online and you've already taken notes, after you finish class, so say you go to class on the very first day, you want to get home and as soon as you can after, review all of your notes that you took from that class. Just reread through them. Fill in any gaps, of course, if you missed anything that the professor said, but just reread through your notes. That's your first day of class. Okay, then you get to your second day of class. You get done, you get home from class, you've taken your notes for that day, reread over your first day of notes, and then read over your second day of notes. So you've read through all the notes you've taken before. Your third day of class, you repeat the same thing. You read through day 1 through day 3. You basically end up rereading your notes every single day as class goes and it progresses. And that sounds like it would get to be a ton and unbearable. But the thing is, your mind's really smart and your mind gets bored really easily. So once you start knowing it, you just skim through it. I mean, it's kind of like, all right, yeah, I got that. And then it's incredible. It's so simple, but it works so well. Is as you're skimming through the things that you don't remember, things that you don't know, your brain sticks on. It might just be like a millisecond, but your brain sticks on it and you register for a second, and it's going to help you see it just again and again in a way that you're integrating the information, and it's not just like repeating it 10 times in a row and then you're going to forget it in 20 seconds, but it's spaced repetition, which I'll do a whole other video on spaced repetition. But that is one of the keys to studying is instead of spending, for example, 2 hours studying one topic and then not even seeing it again for 2 weeks and then taking the test and forgetting everything you studied for those 2 hours, study it for an hour, understand it, and then spend 10 minutes 6 more times just reviewing it really quickly. And your brain's going to have to go through the process of not only, because you've already stored the information, but in order to use it on a test and to remember it later, you have to go back and retrieve that information. So you need to practice retrieving that information in your brain. You need to create the neural pathways, not only to where you've already stored the information somewhere in your brain, but you need to tell your brain how to get back to that information and pull it out when you need it and pull it out in the way that you need it. So saying it again and again and making yourself think about these concepts and bring these concepts back into the front of your mind, you're just regenerating those pathways and you're making them stronger and you're making it easier for your brain to remember. So it really does go by quickly, but it takes discipline because you're going to get lazy. You're going to think, oh, I already know that. I don't need to do it. But I promise you, and I'm not going to promise you many things, but I promise you that this is going to help you so much in your studies. I've done it in my chemistry classes, in my physics classes, in my anatomy class that I'm in right now. I mean, just about every class that I've taken, it's really, really helped me to integrate the information. So, what are the advantages to looking over your notes like this? Well, first of all, I don't know how many of you guys have taken a college class or upper division class, but professors love having cumulative final exams. And so if you just study and just like cram all this information in your brain for the one test and then it's out of your brain a week later and you don't even remember any of it anymore and you don't even like recognize the equation, you're going to get back to the final and be scrambling, and you can't condense an entire semester's worth of studying during dead week, especially if you're doing it for multiple classes. But again, spaced repetition, by seeing this throughout the semester, you're remembering what you've already learned, and so when you get to finals, it's not so much of a, oh my gosh, I have to relearn this. It's just, okay, I've been doing this. I might like kind of review it a little bit more strongly, but honestly, I will say there are times when I slacked on this process. But when I was disciplined and I would read through my notes like this every time, it wasn't even like I had a dead week. I mean, I already knew what we were doing going into it because I've been refreshing and studying for my final all of this semester. Another thing about college classes, for people who might not have taken college classes, your final is worth a ton of your grade. Your final exam is worth a ton of your final class grade. So why would you risk doing well on a couple of midterms and then bombing your final and getting a really bad grade? It's something that's really, really helped me monumentally in college to do well on final exams. And it also helps you as you go throughout classes because a lot of times concepts build on each other. For example, I like using kind of the introductory science class as an example because I'm a pre-medical student. A lot of people who are pre-health take the intro sciences. It's something we can all kind of relate on. In general chemistry, you're not going to move on to interactions of molecules and different particles, different chemicals, different reactions if you don't know what a neutron is or an electron is. So if you learn about these basic, like absolute fundamental parts of what makes up a molecule, about the atoms, and then you move on to these huge reactions, but you don't remember what actually is inside going on, you're not going to be able to make as deep connections and you're not going to fully understand it. But if you understand the interactions between negative and positive charges, for example, to continue this example, then as you go on later, you'll be like, oh, so this molecule is reacting this way because it has this charge here and this charge here. And it's just, the more you can understand different concepts and how they relate in your brain, the better you're going to have it. Because again, as we talked about earlier in the video, when you're retrieving that information, if there's only one spot in your brain that you have it, then you have to like find that one trigger that's going to help you remember that piece of information. But if you have multiple different things that go ding, 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 this is what the information is that you've connected it to in your learning, then there's a ton of different ways that you can mentally go about getting to the information that you need for your exam. And again, that's what reading through your notes does, and it's actively reading through your notes. That is a huge key, is actively reading through the notes. It's not just, okay, yeah, skim. Because like I said, once you get really good at it and you've read it 12 times and you've actively read it, you can skim it and just kind of review because it's in your brain. Don't waste too much time on it. But especially the first times that you're kind of reading through and reviewing it again, actively go through. Think about how it connects. Think about if you understand it. That's when you get out your colors and you really just kind of start going crazy on your different, like green, this is super, super important. That's how I did it. Yellow was definitions. And then whenever I read through it, I'd be like, oh, green, got to pay attention. So this is really your time to kind of personalize it and make sure you just condense it and consolidate it in a way that makes sense to you in your mind. Again, I really hope this helps you in the future with your classes. It's something that I've done all of college. I've done it in the courses that I've taken outside of college. I did it when I was studying for the MCAT. I'll probably do it in medical school. Haven't gotten there yet, but I'll let you know whenever I'm in there if I do and if it works. But for anyone going into upper division or upper level classes and courses, I highly recommend you trying this process. So I hope it helps, and I'll see you guys in the next video.